The CEO's voice cut through the open office like a blade. "We need to talk." Every head turned. Every keyboard stopped. And when his eyes locked onto Daniel Harper, the quiet single dad who never looked anyone in the eye, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. His hands, rough from years of balancing overtime shifts and bedtime routines, froze over his keyboard. He knew that tone. It wasn't casual. It wasn't friendly. It was the kind of tone that ended paychecks, health insurance, and fragile hopes. He thought of his 7-year-old daughter Mia waiting at home, her tiny shoes by the door, her drawings taped to the refrigerator like trophies. He thought of rent due in 10 days. He thought of the promise he had made to her the night her mother left, that he would never let her feel alone again. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Stories. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel stood up slowly, aware of the whispers rising behind him like wine through dry leaves. He kept his gaze low, just as he always did. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't defiance. It was survival. Eye contact had become dangerous years ago. Back when hospital rooms smelled like antiseptic and fear, back when doctors spoke words like aggressive and late stage about his wife's illness. Back when he learned that sometimes, if you look too directly at pain, it swallows you whole. The CEO, Richard Lawson, was not a man known for softness. Tall, impeccably dressed, his silver hair always perfectly combed, he built his reputation on precision and control. The company had grown under his leadership, but so had the rumors, stories, of employees fired without warning, of standards that bordered on impossible. Daniel had only been working there for 11 months, hired on probation after his previous employer downsized. He arrived early, left late, and spoke only when necessary. His supervisors described him as efficient but distant. Capable but cold. What they didn't see were the mornings that began at 5 a.m., when Daniel braided Mia's hair with clumsy fingers while reading her spelling words aloud. They didn't see the lunch breaks he spent on the phone with her teacher, apologizing for forgotten permission slips. They didn't see the nights he stayed up washing uniforms by hand because the washing machine had broken and repairs had to wait. Inside the glass-walled office, the city skyline stretched endlessly behind the CEO's desk. Daniel kept his eyes fixed on the floor. He could feel Richard Lawson studying him, measuring him the way he measured quarterly profits. There had been a mistake in last week's financial report. A small miscalculation, caught before it reached the board but significant enough to raise concern. Daniel had found it himself and corrected it quietly. He had sent an email explaining the discrepancy. He had triple-checked every figure since. "You don't look at people when they speak to you," the CEO finally said, his voice calm but edged with something unreadable. "Why?" The question struck harder than any accusation. Daniel's jaw tightened. He felt the familiar heat behind his eyes, the warning of emotion he had trained himself to bury. He had learned long ago that vulnerability was a luxury he could not afford. Vulnerability didn't pay bills. It didn't comfort a child who woke from nightmares calling for her mother. He forced himself to speak, his voice low and steady. He explained that it wasn't disrespect. It wasn't indifference. It was habit. A shield built during years when looking at someone meant seeing pity in their eyes. After his wife passed, people looked at high.